Goldman Sachs published a study on American workers. Among people earning over $500,000 a year, 40% said they were living paycheck to paycheck, not struggling, not behind on bills, earning $500,000 a year and still needing the next check to land. That number alters the story most of us were told. The story was that earning more would lift the pressure, but 67% of American workers say they live paycheck to paycheck right now. And that figure barely changes as income increases. So if the problem were income, high earners would have solved it. They haven't, which raises a question worth sitting with. If earning more doesn't fix it, what exactly is being fixed when the strategy works? There is a game being played with your money. It has rules. Those rules were never explained to you. Not in school, not at your first job, not when you got your first raise and watched it quietly disappear. The people who get ahead financially are not necessarily earning more. They understand how the mechanism actually works. That is what this video is about. Because if you don't understand it, the treadmill keeps running. The raises keep coming. The pressure never quite lifts. My name is Alex. If you've ever done the math and felt like the numbers should add up by now, stay with this, because the math does work, just not the way you were taught. I'm going to show you exactly how the trap closes around people who are doing everything right, and what the exit looks like once you can see it clearly. Once you understand the actual mechanics, you stop trying to earn your way out. You start building something that compounds on its own. Here's where it gets strange. The thing that keeps most people stuck doesn't look like a problem. It looks exactly like progress. The consumption trap, the invisible ceiling. Here's the part that took me a while to see clearly. It is not that people are bad with money. It is that most people have never been given an accurate definition of what money actually is. And when you operate from the wrong definition, every decision you make from it is slightly off. Not catastrophically wrong, just enough to keep you running in place. Here is the definition most of us absorbed without realizing it. Money is what you exchange for things you want. You earn it, you spend it, you upgrade your life with it. That is the entire framework. And inside that framework, a raise is an invitation to live a little better, to reward yourself for the work, to finally get the apartment or the car or the vacation you have been putting off. The problem is not the logic. The problem is where the logic leads. Say you get a $5,000 raise this year. That is $416 a month. You feel it. You decide you have earned a nicer place to live. Maybe a car that is not 10 years old. Maybe both. Within 6 months, that $416 will have a job. It is keeping the new life running. And now you need the next raise just to stay where you are. That sequence has a name, lifestyle creep. And it is not a character flaw. It is actually a completely rational response to the definition of money you were handed. If money is for consuming, then more money means more consumption. The math checks out. The outcome does not. Now here's what changes when you shift the definition. Money is not a medium of exchange. Money is stored time. It is the hours you already worked, held in a form that can either be converted into things or converted into future options. Every dollar you spend is a decision to convert stored time into consumption. Every dollar you invest is a decision to let stored time generate more time. That reframe sounds simple. It is not small. Because under that definition, a $5,000 raise is not an invitation. It is $416 a month that can either reset your lifestyle ceiling or start compounding. Invested at the market's long-run average of about 10% annually, that $416 a month grows to over $550,000 in 25 years. You put in $125,000. The other $425,000 came from time doing its work. You did not get $400 a month. You've got a choice between a lifestyle upgrade and $500,000. Nobody framed it that way. But that was always the actual decision on the table. Now think about how many of those decisions have already happened. Not just raises, bonuses, tax refunds, side income. Every one of them arrived at the same invisible fork in the road. And most people took the same path without realizing there was another one. I want to be clear about something. This is not about deprivation. It is not about skipping things you actually value. It is about understanding what you are trading. When you upgrade your lifestyle on autopilot every time your income goes up, you are not enjoying your money more. You are converting options into things. And things depreciate. Options compound. The consumption trap is not a moral failure. It is what happens when smart, hardworking people apply a definition of money that was never designed to make them free. It was designed to make them productive consumers, which is a very different thing. And that distinction matters because the trap was not accidental. The reason most people never question the earn-spend upgrade cycle is that an enormous amount of infrastructure exists to make it feel normal, rewarding, and even like the right thing to do. Understanding where that infrastructure came from and who it actually serves is what makes it possible to step outside it. The scoreboard problem. Why you're playing the wrong game. Think about who actually built the scoreboard you have been measuring yourself against. Most people never ask that question. They just accept the metrics. Salary, job title, car, zip code, square footage. These feel like natural ways to measure progress because they are visible, they are comparable, and everyone around you is using the same system. But visible and useful are not the same thing. And the scoreboard most people are using was not designed to help them accumulate wealth. It was designed by people who profit when you spend. Follow the incentives for a moment. When you lease a car you cannot quite afford, someone wins. When you upgrade your apartment after a raise instead of investing the difference, someone wins. When you buy the newer phone, the bigger TV, the kitchen renovation that felt necessary after your neighbor did theirs, someone wins. In every one of those transactions, the winner is not you. You got the thing. They got a margin, a subscriber, a debt relationship, or a data point proving the marketing worked. This is not a conspiracy. It is just capitalism doing what capitalism does. The entire consumer economy is built on one psychological mechanism, making the next level of spending feel like the natural next step, and it is extraordinarily good at its job. Consumer prices in the United States have risen by nearly 25% since 2020. Wages for most workers did not keep pace, so the average American household is spending more on things that cost more, while the actual purchasing power of each dollar quietly shrank. And yet the cultural pressure to maintain and upgrade a lifestyle did not soften to match that reality. It intensified. Here's what that looks like in practice. Bank of America data currently shows that households living paycheck to paycheck have more than 90% higher necessity spending than households that do not. Same income bracket, roughly the same life, but one group has structured their life around visible spending. The other has not. The gap between them is not talent or luck. It is the scoreboard they decided to play. Goldman Sachs published research this year showing that 40% of workers earning over $500,000 annually report living paycheck to paycheck. Let that land for a second. Not people scraping by. People earn more in a year than most Americans will earn in a decade. Still stretched, still needing the next check. That is not an income problem. That is a scoreboard problem. The lifestyle expanded to fill the income, and then it expanded a little past it. The trap works at every income level because the scoreboard works at every income level. There is always a nicer car, always a better neighborhood, always someone in your circle who just upgraded something and made your current version feel slightly insufficient. The comparison never stops because the system never stops serving you new comparisons. Now here is the other scoreboard, the one nobody posts about: net worth, ownership percentage, the point at which your money generates more per month than you contribute. None of that shows up in photos. Nobody at dinner asks how your index fund is performing. There is no social reward for the automated transfer you set up on a Tuesday morning that nobody noticed. The invisible scoreboard produces no audience, no validation, no signal to the people around you that you are winning. And that silence is not a side effect of the strategy. It is the reason the strategy works. The people playing the visible game need constant input to keep going. Every purchase is partly a signal. Every upgrade is partly performed. When the music stops, when the job disappears, or the market turns, or the unexpected bill arrives, the performance becomes expensive to maintain. The people playing the invisible game built something with no audience requirement. It runs whether anyone is watching or not. And because nobody could see it being built, nobody could slow it down either. The question is not which scoreboard looks better. It is which one actually pays out. And to see exactly what that difference looks like in real numbers over a real career, you need to watch two people start from the exact same place. A tale of two paths, the math that separates them. Same starting line, completely different finish. Let me show you exactly how that happens. Two people, both project managers at the same mid-sized company in the same city. Both start the job at 35, earning the same salary. $83,730, which is almost exactly the US median household income right now. Same desk, same benefits package, same 401k. That is their employer retirement account. Sitting in the same HR onboarding email that arrived on the same Monday morning. Call the first one Derek. Derek is sharp, works hard, and has been waiting a long time to feel like he has arrived. So when that first paycheck clears, he makes some decisions. He moves into a better apartment. He leases a car that fits the image of someone going places. He starts eating at the kind of places that match where he sees himself heading. None of it is reckless. All of it is normal. All of it is exactly what the visible scoreboard rewarded in the last section. By the end of year 1, Derek looks like someone pulling ahead. The second person is Claire. Claire does something quieter. She automates $500 a month into a low-cost index fund the week she starts. She also reads her HR onboarding email carefully enough to find the part about the 401k match on page 2. Her employer matches 4.6% of her salary. On $83,000, that is just under $3,900 a year in free money. She contributes enough to capture every dollar of it. To everyone at the office, Claire looks like she's standing still. Derek looks like he's winning. Now run the numbers forward 25 years. Claire's $500 a month, invested at the market's long-run average of roughly 10% annually, grows to $663,000. She put in $150,000 herself. The other $513,000 came from compounding. Time did that. Not a bigger salary. Not a smarter stock pick. Just time and a decision she made quietly at 35. The employer match runs separately. Nearly $4,000 a year, invested at the same rate over 25 years, adds another $425,000 to her total. That is money her employer handed her because she read page 2 of an email. Most people in her office skipped it. Derek, over that same period, has lived well. He has the apartment upgrades, the car leases, and the vacations. He has looked like someone winning for 2.5 decades. But his net worth has not compounded. His lifestyle has. And those are not the same thing. Then comes Tuesday morning at 60 that neither of them planned for. A restructuring. Both of them get the email. Both carry a box out to the parking lot. For Claire, it is a shock, but not a crisis. She has a 9-month cash runway sitting in a separate account she never touched. She can take her time. She can be selective. She ends up finding a role that pays 8% more than the one she just lost, because she negotiated from patience instead of panic. For Derek, the same Tuesday is a different experience entirely. His lifestyle requires every paycheck. There is no runway. He puts his rent on a credit card at just under 23% interest. He defers his car payment. Within 3 weeks, he takes the first offer that comes through, at 15% less than his previous salary, because he could not afford to wait for a better one. Same career, same starting point, same Tuesday morning, 2 completely different realities. The gap between them was not built in a dramatic moment. It was built in 100 quiet moments over 25 years, every time a raise arrived, and one of them asked what it was actually for. There is a word for what Claire built, and it is not luck. It is what happens when you understand a specific set of rules that most people were never taught. And those rules are simpler than you think. The 5 rules. They never taught you the hidden mechanics. 5 rules. That is the entire gap between Derek and Claire. Not 5 habits, not 5 personality traits, 5 structural rules about how money actually moves. Rules that were never written on a classroom board, never covered in orientation, never mentioned by the advisor at the bank who was trying to sell you something. Here they are. The first rule is compounding. You have heard the word. Most people have. But hearing it and actually feeling what it means at scale are 2 different things. Compounding means your money earns a return, and then that return earns a return, and then that earns a return. And this process accelerates quietly for as long as you leave it alone. It does not feel like much in year 2 or year 3. It feels like a lot in year 20. The reason Claire ended up with $663,000 from $500 a month is not that she found a secret investment. It is that she left arithmetic alone long enough to do its job. She contributed $150,000 over 25 years. Compounding contributed the other $513,000. Time did more work than she did. That is the rule. The second rule is that time is the only input you cannot buy back. Every other variable in the compounding equation can be adjusted later. You can increase your contribution amount, you can rebalance your portfolio, you can reduce your fees, but the years you did not start cannot be recovered. The 35-year-old who starts today has something a 45-year-old cannot purchase at any price: 10 years of compounding runway. The cost of waiting is not what you failed to save. It is what those savings would have generated. The third rule is leverage. Not debt necessarily, though debt is one form of it. Leverage means using a system, a structure, or someone else's resources to multiply your output beyond what your labor alone can produce. The 401k employer match is leverage. Your employer adds nearly $4,000 a year to Claire's account because she filled out a form. That is not income she earned by working harder. That is a structural advantage she accessed by understanding the rules. Most people in her building left it on the table. The fourth rule is ownership over income. Wages are taxed at the highest marginal rates. Investment gains, dividends, and business income are taxed differently, often significantly lower. The wealthiest Americans do not primarily earn wages. They hold equity. Their money works inside structures that the tax code treats more favorably than a paycheck. This is not a loophole. It is the stated design of the system. The people who wrote the tax code understood the difference between income and ownership, and they priced them accordingly. Most wage earners never make that distinction. That is expensive. The fifth rule is defense before offense. No investment strategy survives lifestyle creep. The 50-30-20 framework, 50% of take-home pay to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings, is not a budgeting tip. It is the minimum floor that makes the other four rules possible to apply. Without it, compounding has nothing to work with. Time passes anyway, but nothing accumulates. The automated transfer is not the exciting part of this story. It is the part that makes the exciting part mathematically possible. Now, here's what strikes me about these 5 rules. None of them is secret. They are not hidden in a book that only certain people can access. The information is available to anyone. What is not available to most people is the framing. Nobody sits a 25-year-old down and explains that a raise is a fork in the road with a $500,000 difference between the two paths. Nobody walks through what it costs, in real numbers, to play the visible scoreboard for 30 years instead of the invisible one. The rules exist. The explanation of why they matter does not get handed out, and understanding them intellectually is still only half of it. Because knowing the rules is one thing. Living by them for years, while everyone around you is playing a different game and winning the applause for it, that is something else entirely. The lonely middle, the psychological toll, and the payoff. Nobody talks about how long the middle part lasts. Every story about financial independence skips straight from the decision to the outcome. Someone made a change, stayed consistent, and eventually arrived somewhere good. What gets left out is the decade in between, when nothing is visible, nothing is celebrated, and the social cost of the strategy is at its highest. Claire knows this stretch well. A few years into her plan, she's at a birthday dinner with colleagues from work. Someone just closed on a condo. Someone else got a company car with their promotion. The conversation moves around the table the way it always does in your late 30s and 40s, full of announcements and upgrades, and the quiet competition that nobody names out loud. Claire says she is doing fine. She watches a few faces register polite disappointment. There is nothing to announce. No purchase, no upgrade, no visible proof of progress. She drives home in the same car she drove 2 years ago, and she sits with the particular discomfort of winning a game that has no audience. That feeling is real. I do not think it gets acknowledged enough in these conversations. The financial math is straightforward once you understand it. The social math is harder. Human beings are wired to seek signals from the people around them that they are on the right track. And for a long stretch of the invisible scoreboard strategy, those signals do not come. The fire emojis go to the renovation reveal. Nobody posts a screenshot of their index fund balance at a dinner party. What makes it harder is that the moves that actually matter are almost offensively unglamorous. The automated transfer. The 401k contribution is set to capture the full employer match. The raise that arrived in March and disappeared into an account Claire does not look at daily. These are the decisions that separate her trajectory from Derek's. They produce no moment, no story to tell, no reaction from anyone. And yet, somewhere around year 7, something shifts. Claire opens her investment account on an ordinary Wednesday evening, and notices a number that stops her. She's been contributing $500 a month. This month, the account generated $504 on its own. Her money is now producing more than she is putting in. The contributions keep coming, but they are no longer carrying the weight. Compounding has taken over. From this point forward, the portfolio does not need her to work harder, earn more, or make a single dramatic decision. It just needs time to continue. That is the tipping point. And it arrives on a consistent 10% annual return at almost exactly 7 years in. Month 84. The portfolio sits at around $60,000. Quiet, unannounced, generating more per month than the person who built it is contributing. This is what financial independence actually looks like in its early form. Not a number on a magazine cover, a Wednesday evening when the math flips. But here is what the number cannot capture. A few years after that tipping point, Claire gets a call on a Thursday night. Her father is in the hospital. It is serious. She opens her laptop and books the first available flight, departing the next morning. She checks into a hotel near the hospital and stays for 11 days. She does not calculate whether she can afford the room. She does not negotiate her time off against a deadline. She does not spend a single moment of those 11 days distracted by logistics. The money handled every problem that money can handle, which meant she could be completely present for the ones it could not. That is what a decade of invisible decisions purchased. Not a car, not a status signal, not a number to announce at a dinner, the ability to be fully human in a moment that required everything she had. There is a version of that Tuesday morning layoff, that Thursday night phone call, that unexpected bill that would have broken Derek in a way that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with options. Claire had options. Derek had obligations. The difference between those two words is what this entire strategy is actually about. And it starts earlier and costs less than most people think. The quiet win. Here's the one thing this entire video comes down to. The rat race is not about how much you earn. It is about which game you are playing with what you earn. Most people never get told there are two scoreboards. They spend 30 years optimizing for the visible one and wonder why the math never quite adds up. A few things worth holding on to. Lifestyle creep is not a character flaw. It is what happens when money gets defined as something to spend rather than something to compound. Time is the one input that cannot be purchased later. The employer match is free leverage that most people walk past every single day. And the tipping point, the moment your money earns more than you contribute, arrives in about 7 years if you start and do not stop. Next time a raise lands or a bonus clears, notice the pull. Notice how quickly the upgrade presents itself as the obvious next step. That pull is the scoreboard working exactly as designed. You get to decide which one you're playing. One question worth carrying into the next conversation. What happens to people who understand all of this, but feel like they started too late? That is where this goes next. If this landed for you, share it with someone still running on the treadmill. They may not know there is a door.